Good evening. It's 6:07. We're gonna reconvene back into open session. F, announcement of actions taken in closed session.
In closed session tonight, there was a motion to employ Lorena Rodriguez as athletic director effective October 1, 2018. Motion by trustee Calderon Jr., seconded by trustee Alvarado. The roll call vote for approval was unanimous. Voting for approval were trustees Calderon Jr., Alvarado, Romero, Calderon, and Castillo.
Thank you, Mr. Father. G, comments from the public. Board will take any and all comments from the public related to an item on the agenda or any item of the district business that is not on the agenda. So, Ariana Madrigal.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I'm here to represent Calexico High School ASB. I'm the public relations. I'm just going to be listing the events that we've had and are going to have in Calexico High School. So we've had a successful higher ed day, which all seniors were able to ask their last minute questions to any college representative. A few events that are coming up next month is our blood drive will be October the 2nd. We will be having our first pep rally and our first football home game next week on Friday, October 5th. And lastly, we'll be having our Spirit Week from October 8th through the 12th, following our homecoming game on October the 19th, and ending with our homecoming dance on October the 20th. And that's all.
Thank you. No other comments? Okay, so H, presentations, H1, A2A, end of year report on attendance.
There we go. All right, thank you. I'm Jill Douglas from A2A. Thank you so much for being here. Hi, good evening, everyone, members of the board. I'm extremely excited. We just finished our partnership, the first year of our partnership with A2A in your district. And I'm extremely excited to be able to share some of these results with you. So without further ado, I will go to the next. We'll just jump right in. So first thing is first is this is really a telltale of why we're all here. We all know that absence kids do have harder lives. So with the Attorney General report that they had found that they had stated in 2015, that 83% of those students that are chronically absent in first grade and kindergarten, they can't read on level by the time they get to third grade. And it's just a domino effect from there. So with that, we were seeing that they're 4 times more likely if they can't read on level by the time they get to fourth or third grade, that they're 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. And then again, you and I know how hard it is to get jobs with a college degree. Imagine not having even a high school diploma. So they're 8 times more likely to actually be incarcerated, having to make ends meet in different ways, and a lot of times it ends up being illegal activity. So with that, what we did was we partnered, we're really working on the achievement gap. We want to make sure that every student has the same opportunities, same experience throughout their educational career. And so we're really working on that achievement gap. And what we did was we worked with the Attendance Institute to conduct a study for us that included 21 school districts that were utilizing A2A consecutively for 7 years. So what we did was we compared the California white students up against your California, your Latino students, and then your California African American students. And as you can see, there's a huge gap there. But what we found was that those districts that were really utilizing A2A and were really focusing on attendance, we were able to shrink that gap, not close it, but shrink it. So we're still working in the right direction. So from there, what it really became about. It was less about ethnicity, less about socioeconomics, less about gender, and it's really just about being present in that classroom, being there. If they're not there to hear the curriculum, if they're not there to hear the curriculum. So last year, what we did was we sent out 12,634 communications on your district's behalf. We typically, what we've seen in the past is that 50% of those students that receive that first letter, they don't go on to receive that second letter. It's really about communicating, educating the parents as to what's going on with their student when it comes to attendance. What we typically want to see here is a 50% reduction from letter to letter. So it's really just showing that the letters are effective. Yes?
So these letters are the SARB letters?
These letters are the attendance letters, the first truancy letter, the second and third, and then the excessive excused absence notices that go out to parents, just letting them know how much attendance that their student is, how much attendance that they are calling in for their student. All right. So when we're looking at save rate, we are looking at those students that, when we're referring to save rate, we're referring to those students that received that first notice of truancy or that first excessive excused absence, but did not have enough attendance to qualify to receive that second notice. And this is exactly what we want to see. Even being this your first year utilizing A2A, these are phenomenal results. So looking at this, you'll see take for instance your fifth graders. 68% of those students that received that first notice, they did not go on to receive that second notice. So you'll see that green line, that's the A2A overall average of all of our districts that are utilizing A2A. And with that, you guys are at least at or above in every single one of those, almost every single one of those grade levels. So again, this is a great first year, great start when we are looking at attendance. So I know we're looking at, oops, I'm sorry. I'm turning my page, but not turning that. So when we're looking at conferencing, we do have a lower percentage there, which is typical. Your first year, it's all about learning a new process, learning a whole new system, really getting acclimated. Now, before, they were the ones that were sending out the letters, and we're the ones that are doing that now for your district's behalf, on your district's behalf. But they don't have to go in and look at the letters, but they're looking at those lists of students. So there's a whole process there to go in and review those lists of students. So now bringing in conferencing this year, we've implemented back in September. I came out in June, really kind of gave, got your counselors all up and running. We had an admin workshop teaching them, talking to them about best practices and so forth when conferencing. And then I came out in August, did a refresher training for your attendance clerks so we can get everybody on track and really start utilizing it and really seeing how effective we can make this, with when it comes to conferencing. And then today we had a whole slew of trainings this morning, your attendance clerks, the new users, and so forth. We did a whole thing about reporting and a whole session on conferencing itself. So I'm excited to see next year on how the results are going to look once we're utilizing. And I'm not saying they're not conferencing. It's just that they weren't utilizing the system fully when it came to A2A. So this year, it's a second year, so this is when, now that we've gotten everybody up and running, we should see different results. Looking at this next slide, this is what, when talking to districts nationwide, these are some of the factors that had a huge impact on student attendance. And not everybody was seeing the same, going through the same things. Some were dealing with that political climate changes, some with weather, some floods, some fires, and so forth. And then, of course, that relentless flu that cycled and then recycled and sometimes cycled again. And then, of course, school safety. A lot of times we just think, just because it happens in one state, it's just, kind of stays there. Well, it doesn't. It's a huge impact. A lot of times, it goes across the nation. It scares everybody, so you'll see a huge impact when it comes to that. But, with that, we've actually seen, with your district, you guys were able to pull through, and you guys had some amazing results when it came to student attendance. So I'm excited to get to that slide, but I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. So what this slide is this is really a bird's eye view of every student that is within your district. We've categorized them based on their attendance. The great thing about this is that your staff has the ability to run reports and be able to monitor and look at which students make up each one of these pieces of pie. So as when we're looking at manageable students, those students have missed a lot of schooling, but not enough to be considered chronic. So there are a lot of different tools in A2A to help them see, start getting these lists out, start engaging with parents sooner so that we can stop those trends from occurring again this year. And then this next slide, this is that pie chart that is broken down year over year. And this is the one I was really excited to show you. So last year, as you can see, you're excellent. We had year zero data for you provided by your district. So we were able to compare that based on how they did, how we finished up this last school year. So what we're looking at over here on the left two bars is your excellent and satisfactory. We typically want to see those ones go up and the manageable and chronic come down. And that is the exact picture that we're seeing. So even with, a lot of times we can let, letters do their job, but it's all the interventions in between that really help bring down these numbers, such as the conferencing and, creating incentives and so forth, and just tweaking some of the things that we've done last year compared to this year. If we want to see change, we got to, tweak some things. We have to continuously change. We're all about continuous improvement. So I promise I'm almost done. So chronic, when we're looking at your chronic, this is the typical bell curve that we do see. So when we are looking for, let's say, for instance, your seventh graders, those seventh graders, there's 11% of those seventh graders have missed 10% or more of that valuable learning time. And I will just move right along to the next one so you can actually see by school how your schools did. So with this, we don't have year-over-year data by school, but next year we'll be able to show you some improvements as, where they stand. So again, that's where I am. We kind of have a starting point here. So next year we'll be able to show you where they've, improved and so forth, or where we might need to shift some of that focus at. And I'm constantly working with your district. I work very closely with Hortensia or Annalisa. We're trying to, find little things that we can do. Again, like I had said earlier, we do admin workshops, getting everybody's brains going, seeing what we can do differently this year to help improve student attendance. And then this last slide, this one is a little bit tricky to read, but just so you can see, it's a calendar of every single one, of last year. So the white areas there, and you'll see the numbers in between, within those boxes. Those are the numbers of students that were absent those days. So those white boxes, that's where your daily average is. And then those green ones, you'll see that that's where we had a better day. We had better days. We didn't have as many absences. And then the red ones, we were well, above that average and as far as attendance or absences there. But just looking at this, is there anything that stands out to you? Yes, Mondays and Fridays. I mean, we see that a lot, and it's just really tweaking some of the small things. I know one of my districts, they had a brilliant idea, I thought it was, that, really just kind of taking what they tried to do with that was they did a survey for their students to find out what would help improve your attendance. And they were talking about food. A lot of students, they love food. And I thought this was pretty neat, but the district, what they did was they took all the favorites for their menu items and did them on Mondays and Fridays just to kind of change. So it's just finding those small little things. I'm like, man, that's a really good idea. And then doing incentives such as if the student has to be there all week on the Friday, have a raffle. They have to be present. Then on Monday, they got to be present for the drawing. And it's just small things there, like, lunches with principals or so forth. And just principals acting crazy on the playground to come out and watch it, or something just fun and, stuff like that. Everybody has their own reasons for coming to school, some it's like food, some it's like the bearded dragon, like my boss's. That's what brought her student to school every day. He loved going to that teacher's class to feed the bearded dragon and so forth. So it's really just those things. And that's what we're working with your district to really kind of find and, fine tune some of the things. But that is pretty much it for me. Any questions?
Board members?
All right. Well, I am looking forward to coming back next year and providing you an update again. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. H2, Caldwell Flores Winners Incorporated Bond Program Update.
Well, President Alvarez, members of the board and community, my name is John Greenlee, and I am with CFW, Caldwell Flores Winters. And what we do, we are your financial advisor, and we assisted in the Measure V election back in 2016. And what we'll do is from time to time, we will come and just give you an update as to what's going on with your bonds, provide you with new assessed values and tax rates, and those have just recently came in. And in addition, we'd been asked by staff to also just show if you were to do a new bond issue this year, what impact that may have to your tax rates. And so I will do that and kind of go through this, and at the end be able to answer any questions that you have. But again, just as purely informational and a way for the board to be informed as to what's going on with their bond program. Okay, so just as in way of a little bit of background, Measure V was in November of 2016. You had a passage rate of over 73%. And again, that's really a great thing. What that shows is the community supports the school in favor of the programs that are going to be implemented as a result. The measure had a $45 million authorization. And shortly after the election, we issued the very first series of bonds. And we issued roughly $23.4 million. So as of today, there remains $21.6 million of bonds that you can issue into the future. Okay. A little small for those out there, but you should be able to see them on your computer there. So as far as your existing outstanding general obligation bonds, as of today, you have a total of around $46.7 million of bonds outstanding. 23 are associated with the 2004 Measure J, and then the 23 million I just talked about under the 2016 Measure V. Now, the tax rate that you're currently paying on the prior bond measure is about $100 on an annual basis, and the tax rate for the new bonds that were just issued is roughly $54 that have been levied. And what you find in that $54 in the very first year that was levied has to do with some additional cost for funding a reserve and a variety of things that the county goes through to put that in. But you are under the allowable or the tax rate that was stated in your tax rate statement of about $60. Okay. Now, one of the things we always like to show and look at whenever we're looking at the health of your bond program, and also looking at your tax rates and how those are going to be impacted and how they can change, it really is tied to assessed value. And assessed value is purely the amount of property within the district that the bond levy is levied upon. And so what you can see here in 2019, last year in the column, this last year, your assessed value went up by 3.42. And what that does, it helps maintain your tax rate in the event that you were to have any downturns in assessed value. And as you can see there in my chart, between 2010 and almost 2014, when we had the recession, what you found is that when that went down, your tax rates go up because you have less amount of assessed value. And so in this case, as you can see over the last 5 to 6 years, very strong, good assessed values, very stable. Currently, we don't expect those to change dramatically. And right now, the forecast throughout the county is somewhere between a 2 to 4% increase. Okay? That's all good news, meaning we expect your tax rates to remain pretty stable and not be too volatile because you have a really good tax base. Okay. Now, I think the important probably part of the conversation this evening is really about if you wanted to issue some additional bonds. And I know I will tell you districts throughout the state have been accelerating their programs, primarily because the cost of construction, at least the forecast is it's going to go up. So if you can access more money, get things done sooner than later, that tends to be a good practice that we see consistently throughout not just this region, but throughout the entire state. So I had been asked, talking to staff, if they were to issue, let's say, an additional $8 million. And in our original forecast, we had projected, I think, the next issuance at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. So accelerating that by about a year. And in this case, since your tax rates and you had good assessed values, there's capacity there to do this. So today, this is just an estimate. If you were to issue about $8 million worth of new bonds, and we'd call those the Series B, right now, the estimated interest rate, or what we call a TIC, true interest cost, is about 4.12, and the projected average total tax rate would only go up about $4 to about 57.59. So again, currently you're at about $54. It would go up to about $57. And again, we would have bonds that would have a 28-year maturity, and we would expect those bonds to be rated the same as your existing portfolio. So again, we would have a strong AA rating. So the good news is that, and the real takeaway here, is that you've continued to have good, stable growth within the district. That then equates to a stable tax rate. And again, if let's say you had experienced this year a downturn in your assessed values, it may be difficult to access this $8 million. But the case is you can do that, and the interest rates are still relatively good. Okay? So open issues and next steps, things that you may want to think about. I did just want to quickly talk a little bit about state aid, update on state aid. As you know, as part of your overall program, we have the bonds and also we have state aid. And I have worked closely with your architect, Mr. Sanders, and it looks like we're going to be getting a project out of DSA, out of the approval, and we'll be putting forth your first state aid application here within the next few months. So all of that is moving along. I've had a chance to meet with some of your staff just recently, and we'll be going over that state aid and the sequencing of it to ensure that you maximize those grants in addition to your local match. The next steps, if you were considering doing another bond, it takes anywhere from about 60 to 90 days. We would come back to you if you gave us direction to move forward, and you would have a chance to review and approve documents at a later board date. We would work with staff to do a rating agency presentation. You need to get the rating on the bonds, and I think the earliest that you could really expect to get funding, depending on how quickly you want to accelerate that, would be in late November. But again, we would do it at any direction, at any pace, but I think that would be a nice pace. The earliest that we've been able to usually close a transaction and issue bonds takes about 6 weeks if you're really on a fast track. But right now, we do expect the bond market to remain relatively flat throughout the end of the year. We do know that after the election in November, even though it's only midterms, there's a lot of political turmoil that can kind of affect the bond market. But right now, interest rates have not skyrocketed as expected. So again, the little over 4% I quoted is a very good solid rate for a 28-year bond. So today, again, just to reiterate, it's here for informational. I like to make myself available from time to time if you have any questions about your portfolio. But again, I think all relatively good news. And again, it's always a pleasure to be in front of the board staff as well as the community. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
Sure.
You mentioned that we're about to close up a DSA project.
Yes.
And what you mentioned is that you were going to assist our staff to complete the application. I thought that were already on the list for those matching funds.
Well, I believe we're on the list, but there is a certain amount of paperwork and things that you have to attach. And Greg Norman, who I work very closely with, he's had a chance to be here. He just makes sure that everything's in line and submitted as those come in. So I think there are existing applications, but this would be for a project that I know that you've been working on.
Well, yeah, this is part of Measure V, and
Right.
that was our high school project.
Right.
So I was under the understanding that we were already, the rush was to get on that list so the state could
Right.
match our funds.
I think there are some applications that I believe are already existing there, but this is the one that I know is the most current, and I just want to give you an update on it. But I can, as a follow-up, find out exactly where you are on that list and what has been submitted to date.
And the only reason I'm asking is to maximize our construction.
That's right.
I mean, obviously, we don't have the monies
Right.
to do what we want to do. And so
Right.
if we can get on the list and match it, then
That's
it
right.
would be more funds for the district,
Yeah,
correct?
we've been working very closely, like I said, with your architect to try to get as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to move forward. Yes.
I got a question.
Sure.
You're stating that we go for November, we could issue $8 billion,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
If we wait to 2020, what's your estimate?
What?
That would pull down,
How much you could get at that point?
yeah.
Well, if you deferred and didn't do any until then,
Right.
you
That's my-
yeah. Well, you would then see it would be dependent upon the assessed value growth.
Well, that's assuming that we have the 5% growth.
5% growth. Then if you had 5% growth, you would be able to probably issue as much as 12 to 15, probably the balance of, almost to the balance of what you have remaining. So if you have 5%, 5% is significant, and that would create enough taxing capacity. Right now, we need to hit usually around a 3% to maintain the growth that would maintain
Right.
under 60. So if we have anything less than that, we'd, I think, be impaired. But at this point, you would be able to probably issue somewhere around 12 to 15 million dollars.
Yeah, because of the cost of projects that we have, I mean, it's substantial. Do we have anything in line for the new projects that are planned?
In regards to Mr. Romero?
Example, we have 24 million.
Correct.
That's going to the high school.
Correct.
Do we have other projects planned
So
or
all,
anticipated?
all the projects in regards to Measure V, everything is for Calexico High School.
Right.
Right.
Do we have other projects planned? I mean, why issue another bond issue in November if we have no projects planned? Why not plan some projects and then wait till November 2020?
Okay?
I believe what you're asking, there is levels. Yeah, so, base, yeah.
Okay, can someone tell me the phases then?
The phases, we got 4 phases. I don't know exactly which.
Right.
So, and I understand why get the bonds if we don't even have a plan, but there is a
Exactly.
plan.
Yeah, I know that one of the things, we did meet with the Measure V committee last week, and one of the things that we discussed was, funding. And we do have multiple projects that we have in place with the different phases. And so initially, 23 million is what was the bonds that we went out, but there is a need for additional funding. And so
Correct.
that's the reason for looking at the possibility of selling an additional bond.
It was my understanding that that would be for projects at the high school, I believe, yes. Yeah.
Or Rockwood?
Mr. Gonzalez, Measure V was voted on to the public specifically for the high school,
Correct.
right? Now, what you're talking about here is extra funding that is not about a Measure V, right?
No, this would be part of the.
Extra, a different bond.
Yeah.
No.
No, this would be
All of it is the
eight.
same.
It's Measure V.
This is
Oh,
Measure
Measure
V.
V?
This is Measure V. This would be your next issuance, and you would issue another 8 million of that remaining 21 million that you have.
But if it was sold to the public as going mostly to the high school, can we go and, because we have 2 schools, and I'm gonna say it, one of the schools is Rockwood, the other school is Dual, that are in dire need of restoration. If Measure V was like I said, sold to the public only for the high school, could we use that money to, in this case, Rockwood or Dual?
So we have the total amount of Measure V that went out, for a bond. We know that the amount of money that we have currently in bonds that, has been issued already, which is the 23
23
million,
million, yes.
isn't enough to finish the project
But
at Calexico High School.
I know.
So, with that being said, any additional bond money that we go out and sell, if it's not used for Calexico High School, the concern will be then, why wasn't the bond money completely used for Calexico High School, and then it was used for other
But
projects that weren't part of
what
the
I've been
initial
hearing
plan.
is, all this time, I've been hearing that um, we are gonna get in line for matching funds from the state.
Yes.
We were counting on, or we are counting on, because we told the public that we were gonna do this, we were gonna do this almost $50 million project with Measure V and matching funds from the state. Now, are you telling me that now we have to rely on this and not on matching funds from the state?
It's a combination of
But you never, I don't know, maybe I'm deaf, but I've never heard that we will have to do this in order to complete the high school project. It was always the 23 million that we have plus the matching funds from the state. That's what I've been hearing for about 2 years now. So now we're saying this?
The total amount, was that what we went out to bond. What we went to sell was the 23 million. However, the complete amount of the bond that was passed was for the 45
I
million.
know that.
Correct.
I know that. My point is, we were told, yes, we owe that money, so we had to repay it. So our cash is about 21 or 23 million. But they said, you guys said, well, the other 23 million, we're gonna get it from matching funds. So that's not in the works anymore? Is that what you're telling me?
So I think what was explained was that there are projects that are in line. So obviously that is something that
there
we're still
will be. I
continuing
mean,
to do.
I'm currently aware of the fact that there's about $14 million of applications that are being put in for matching funds that you're going to be receiving, and that this additional $8 million was just to complete the projects that are currently underway at the high school. And
Correct.
they wanted to know what it would cost to do that.
That's not what, I'm sorry, that's not what I heard. I mean, that's not what, I'm not in finance, but according to what I heard, this is the first time that I hear about this.
Okay.
I was told 23 million, the rest of the money from matching funds. Now you're telling me that it's not completely matching funds, now we have to do this?
No, I think the problem is that we were told that we will be in line for the matching.
Yeah,
funds,
yeah.
okay? And
Right.
that's what
That's what
you
we're
just
doing.
mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So we will be in line.
Right. Now, the actual usage of that 8 million, I have not been told exactly what that's going to be used for, but it was just that there may be a need for an additional funding of bonds to complete projects at the high school, in addition to what the first bond covered. Now, the matching funds are still underway, and like you'd said, your number was right. Overall, there is approximately 22 million that you over time will be eligible for. Currently, that amounts about 14 million. It grows because as the properties age, you then have more availability. So bonds will be issued over a period of time. But I'm just coming and letting you know, as a request from staff, they're saying we may need some additional bond money to complete the high school project. And that's, I'm just giving you what the cost to do that would be.
Okay, well,
Yeah. But it is,
you guys know about it? Asking for funds?
No.
We did? I
I
don't
mean,
remember.
we have the capacity of 45 million, so
Yeah.
we issued 23.4. So either we issue more bonds to reach our capacity of 45 million now or next year.
yeah.
Very
And
simple.
Well,
there's-
yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the purpose of my presentation today was to say, if you are presented with an opportunity or being asked to look at issuing bonds, can you today? Does the structure allow you to do it? And the answer is yes.
8
So,
million.
Right, 8 million, you can do all current interest. The tax rate would be under $60, and it appears, at least on the information I was given, that that's kind of a round figure of what may take to finish some of the projects that are underway to complete at the high school.
Mr. Vega, did you have something to add?
What was that again?
Oh, Mr. Vega.
Oh, here you go.
May I?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Good evening. My name is Cesar Vega. I'm your new Assistant Superintendent of Business. Colleagues, Board, Superintendent Gonzalez. Thank you. I'd like to kind of share some of my expertise as in regards to what we're discussing here. I just came on board, so I'm kind of hitting the ground running. And for what I understand, there will be a need for some modular work that is pending at the high school, and also for the work, for the groundwork, for the ground, meaning utilities, plumbing, electrical, gas, and everything that is needed to, put together buildings. That being said, I just want to make sure that the board understands that the state reimbursement process is not as easy as it seems. For any project that we seek reimbursement, we have to complete a project. The project has to be properly procured, meaning from the selection of the architect, to the selection of the contractor, to DSA approvals. Everything has to be in line. Once that happens, then the project, if we are in line, we can submit for reimbursement. Now, this is where I want the board to understand that reimbursement doesn't happen overnight. It can take 3, it can take 5, it can even take up to 10 years. It all depends on state money being available. So I just want you to have a clear understanding of what it's like. So the money from the state coming to us is not going to be overnight. Does that make sense?
So therefore, we're going to need the bonds to cover that.
Exactly. So if we are in line for state reimbursement, and again, I haven't dived deep into the bond and the language and all of that, but if that is the fact, we will need the money to complete the projects that we have, and we will, because I will oversee that. That's what I do. That's what you hire me to do. I will do that, and then if we are eligible for that, then we will seek that reimbursement, but it will come later. It will not come next year, the year after. You have to be just what you're dealing is exactly what other districts are dealing. We just have to have patience.
Can you do an analysis and bring this up at the next board meeting as to what we need to do? The list of the projects, the cost of the projects.
Absolutely.
And should we, at this point in time, go for another 8 million? Or should we wait till 2020?
Okay, that is exactly on my agenda. I have a list of about 20,000 topics to address, but I will do that, sir. I will do that. I will make that a priority, and I will bring a list on when we can do that. One of the things that I also want to say, when it comes to construction, the more you wait, the more expensive things get. That's called escalation cost. So once I review the projects and if everything is procured properly and we're ready to go, then I will come back with recommendations as to how soon we can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Any other questions, board?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I, consent agenda. All items appearing will be acted upon by one motion without discussion unless any item is pulled for separate consideration and action.
I'd like to pull I3
I3,
for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve items I1 and I2.
I'll second. A motion by Mr. Castillo, second by myself. All's in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All's in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Discussion I3. Professional Development, Calexico High School Safety Leads to attend the annual safety and security training in Las Vegas, Nevada from November 28th to the 30th, 2018.
Okay. Well, the question is, I see this training took place also last year. And my question is, I know that the training is crucial. Don't get me wrong about what I'm about to say. We need the training because obviously of what's going on in our schools and trying to keep our schools safe. My only question is, having gone to the safety committee this past week, I saw there was a lot of engagement by not only the personnel that was there, but also by our students. So my question is, I'm not opposed to the training, but why are we sending the same people? And considering that, I mean, I've been around command posts, command centers and so forth, it's good to always cross-train. Cross-train because you know there's always Murphy. And when Murphy hits, you don't have the people with the resources that take to get us out of the disaster. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because it's important that we train as many people as we can, because when that disaster comes, that everybody will know their role and get us out of the disaster. And that's why I'm bringing it up. And again, I have no problem with the training. I just that I like to see new faces. I mean, I remember seeing a kid, and I don't know his name. He is in the Navy program that you have out there. and he was very vocal as to what he's been doing with the class. Who was here, or who was in the safety committee? Ms. Ramirez was here and everything, and this kid impressed me as the fact that he's a leader. He's a leader, and he actually is doing things at the high school, and that's what I like to see. I mean, we had also parents that are taking time off their day to come in and give their feedback and so forth, so that's what I want to see. And that's my own, I mean, the only concern I have with this. With that said, I have no further questions or comments.
Now, are the same individuals that are going, that went last year, going this year?
Well, there's a couple of new faces that I see, but at least half of them have gone already. They play important roles in command centers and so forth. I understand that, but it's like riding a bike. You never forget it, because there's more to disaster response. I mean, there's logistics, there's operations and so forth, and I know they know. But the best training that you get is through FEMA. FEMA actually tells you what you need to do when there is such a disaster. So this one, it's interesting because it talks about bullying, a lot of things that, in fact, let me see. There's, looking at the agenda, it's a good agenda. But what I'm looking at is we have, relationship level strategies. We have suicide intervention and prevention, banishing bullying behavior, impact on social media, things that we're actually going through right now. And that's why, I mean, another thing that I noticed that you have no proctors attending this training, and these are our first responders. Matter of fact, this week, I happened to go by one of your schools when a kid got run over. And who I saw there was proctors responding to this kid. So I like to see some proctors go, because again, the chief of police said that when they respond, the first people they're gonna go talk to are the proctors. The proctors, because normally the proctors are the ones that, if anyone knows anything that's going on your campus, they know it. So again, thank you, and I have no further questions.
Is your recommendation to switch out 2 new people?
Well, if we can, yes, or increase it. But I like new faces to go to this training. I think it's valuable, and they should all experience the same thing.
Definitely noted, and agree with you. And I think our focus has been to offer a lot of these safety trainings to the individuals that are consistent in our safety committee. Some individuals, sometimes we send them to a training, they come and go, and we lose a little bit of the cross-training. We lose a little bit of that constant formula. For the last year, we significantly focused on safety trainings. I can speak that we have offered, not this training in particular, but for example, even administrators, assistant principals have been trained, and then, we all move around. And so that's why you see some consistent leads that have been doing the same effort for the last 2 years. And then you see some new faces as well. We have offered it to those that are attending the safety meetings that offer at the school. And that's how we open this invitation to, and that's why there's 4 familiar trainings. Noted on the proctor, that was an oversight, and I'm glad you're mentioning that. And if we can still add a campus security. Last year we took campus security, and I just noticed that you're right, we didn't add them and include them, and they're key to the safety of our school.
Well, I also know you just hired some new VPs.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
And I don't know how long they're going to be here with us, but at least,
Correct.
They're the ones also that would take over the command posts and so forth. And
Yes.
And so I'd like to see new faces.
Yes, absolutely.
If we can.
Absolutely.
And also what I noticed is that there's also certification that you get presented after completing the course, which is, I think it's good. It's good to see that they're getting certified in these.
Yes.
So if I may, like Ms. Williams mentions, these are definite leads that are at the school site, and we're not talking one campus, but we're talking 2 campuses, CHS 9 and CHS main campus. So I think the leads that have been selected to go are definitely key, and a lot of them offer training to other staff as well. I think if there's staff that may be missing, like proctors or maybe a dean that need to attend, I think that would definitely be something that the high school would like to see. But I think as far as the people that have been selected are definitely key that need to attend. Adding more, I think would be a benefit.
And Mr. Gonzalez, I understand that, but again, I go back to Murphy. They could be leads at leads, and when disaster strikes and they're not there, the rest of the individuals will not be able to perform. And again, disasters can happen anywhere. We got other schools too, and I like for other schools to get involved in this because it can happen in any of our 13 schools.
Well, can
So-
we add? then
Well,
we-
I mean, not at them now, but it's something that we need to, and don't get me wrong, the concept you have, I think it's great. I mean, I've worked it many years, and it can save lives. Because I just had a walk with Mr. Jeremy, and knowing the resources we have, I mean, I don't know how many people know how many buses we have available to transport kids at one single time. But these are the things, we have backhoes back there. We have 17 buses that can actually move individuals like within an hour or two. 17, of course, we got to get bus drivers, but I'm sure they would step up in case of an emergency to be able to transport our kids.
And I know, want to share that one of the things we learned last year from this presentation was the resources that they have. We reached out to several of these presenters last year and asked them to present at our site because, again, it's impossible to take everyone, and I agree with you, cross-training information, emergency can strike at any time, and it's key that all of our staff members are trained. And so we'll continue to focus on that. And the leads going this year, I just want to note that they became leads half in the year last year. And so they're in I want to say starting kind of like a second semester of being the leads and taking more of a lead role in assisting me with safety feedback and safety measures at the high school.
Any other comments?
Do you want to add one dean and one proctor?
What's the motion?
Well,
Make a motion,
I don't know.
Make a motion.
The motion I would make is to, well, if you already sit on the leads, I hope that next year it's a different situation. I'd like to add at least a proctor or two, and maybe, someone from De Anza. I think you only have one from De Anza?
No, we
Or-
have a certificated from De Anza, and we have two certificated from De Anza, from ninth grade campus.
Okay. Well, at least two.
One being a lead and one being a certificated.
Okay, with this year, I guess, add two proctors, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Got a motion?
A motion, that was my motion, to just add two, continue with the leads, and add two proctors.
I'll second that.
So there's a motion by Calderon Junior, second by Calderon. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, Romero, Calderon Junior, Castillo, and myself. Moving on to J, information items. J1, superintendent's report.
All right, so good evening, everybody, trustees. First of all, I'd like to welcome publicly, he's already kind of introduced himself at the mic, but our new Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Mr. Cesar Vega. Welcome. Give him a round of applause. And like he mentioned, I was going to mention it, but he already hit the ground running, seriously. He just started on Monday, and he's a wonderful asset to our district, to our community, and I know that he's going to do great things and bring great things to our district. And on another note, I also want to thank Ms. Carolina Rodriguez. Not farewell yet, Ms. Rodriguez, but
She leaves on the 12th.
Yes,
I know that for
she's
sure.
not leaving yet. She will be leaving soon. However, thank you for the wonderful help and support that you've given us. We're incredibly grateful for her, so thank you for that. We had our back to school for the middle schools last week, and it was a pleasure to attend Enrique Camarena's and Willie Moreno's back to school night. Incredibly packed. It was great to walk into the classrooms. And then this week on Tuesday, attended the back to school night for Aurora and for Calexico High School. And again, that was great pleasure to attend, and I got to tell you, our staff is doing unbelievable and great things. Walking into the classroom, you could just feel the energy, and so I just want to thank all of our staff for getting the back-to-school nights at the middle school and the high school ready, because it was wonderful. And I did mention at my last board meeting the elementary, so you didn't get left out. Also, want to give a shout out and thank you. I attended a tree donation ceremony at Cesar Chavez Elementary School. I was invited, and we had the Calexico Rotary Club actually donate some trees, which was excellent. They donated a total of 5 trees, and you know, it adds to the beauty of the school. The shade is going to be incredible for our students. But more importantly, I think that it establishes a long-term legacy, and that long-term legacy, because these are trees that will be there for many years, and at least I'll always remember them, and some students, as these were donated by the Calexico Rotary as a commitment and dedication to our students and again to the community. So thank you to the to our Rotary Club here in Calexico. Had the pleasure of going and hearing Congressman Vargas speak, and this was over at Calexico High School on Monday, September the 17th. He talked to our Navy Cadet students, and so it's amazing his commitment to our students, to our community, that he's here and makes himself available. And so I just want to give a shout out to Congressman Vargas for being here and addressing our students and our staff. Lastly, some upcoming activities. We have the Willis Ward football game, which will be held next Friday, October the 5th at 7 p.m., and we'll be playing against Imperial. Then we're also planning a ribbon cutting ceremony for the remodeling of renovation of the Willis Ward parking lot on Friday, October 5th at 6:30 p.m., right before the Willis Ward game. And then just lastly, our next board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 11, 2018. And thank you, and everyone have a great evening. 11, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. J2, Measure V update? No updates for Measure V? Measure V update?
No, we're good.
No. J3, association comments, ACT?
Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to acknowledge that Rockwood Elementary is in attendance this evening. You probably have noticed that each board meeting, we try to get our association members by school to come, and this one is an outstanding group of people who bring quite a few each time they come. So I'd like to acknowledge that with them. I'm Darla Dreesen. I am this year the vice president for the secondary schools. So the information that I may impart with you is about the secondary more so than the elementary. I apologize. First of all, with the Measure V going on, we would ask that we be kept in the loop when new buildings are being brought onto the campus so that we can assist you with teachers who may need accommodations. We have quite a few that do, and so we would like to, you can use our expertise in that department, so do not hesitate to ask us for assistance. I would also like to commend Mrs. Williams. She's been an excellent principal for us. One of the things that she has endorsed is the technology part, which is just, kind of a nightmare. But we appreciate all the technology that you've been allocating to our classrooms. We really appreciate each class to have their own classroom set of Chromebooks, et cetera, to enhance the education. And also the addition of classes. I think it was quite a few years back when Alan Heck and I, every year would go to a board meeting and endorse for graphic arts, and I think you remember that. And we appreciate that. It has enhanced the art program. This year we also added the AP art history class. They don't have textbooks yet, but at least the class is there, and hopefully they will have textbooks soon. One of the things that came up at the beginning of the year, we read through the handbook with students. And one of, one of the funniest sticking points is, what are our school colors? And they argue. They are garnet and white, I tell them. And they say, no, they're garnet and gold. And I say, no, that was De Anza when you used to go there. No, and blah, 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 back and forth. So I pull out my old T-shirt, which used to fit me and doesn't anymore, that says, our colors are garnet and white. Well, the handbook now says, with a touch of gold. So, this is gold, correct? This is not. This is yellow-orange, in my opinion. Which brings me back to our original endorsement of the fine arts, all in the elementary and in the junior highs. We need to be progressive. We are progressive. We need to be more progressive than the state of California. At this point, when they cut art and music programs, it was a travesty. And we need to go back to adding, at least start with the junior highs. The elementaries do need fine arts education. It is such a resource for them in all the other areas of Common Core. The language especially, math skills, science skills, all of that is enhanced by a fine arts program. And I know you'll say, well, we do have music in the elementary. No, you have band in the elementary. Music enhances their singing abilities, their dancing abilities, etc. So I would ask you to consider, especially Mrs. Ramirez gets really tired of hearing me say, LCAP, we need to put more fine arts, more art classes and music classes into our elementaries and junior highs. Okay.
Can I just make a comment to that?
Sure.
We visited November 7th some schools in Tustin, California. And one of the elementary schools that we attended, it's mandatory for every kid, third grader, I think, it started at third grade, to play the violin. So that was intriguing to see that, that they're very serious about their art over there. I just want to make.
And we have a great deal of talented students.
Yes.
And
well, to play a violin, it's.
Oh, well,
it's a lot of
yeah.
work.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other areas that, and this is not really my place to endorse, but we have a proctor on campus named Ronald Sampson, who is excellent. He's not a full-time employee, and because we have so many absences, it would be a wonderful thing to hire him full-time. Very dependable and great at his job. Just wanted to stick that in there. Then the last thing is, if you recall our discussions with the CTE people who went from permanent status to probationary status, the 3 of them, well, they still really would like to be back on permanent status. So I brought you a petition from them to consider putting them back on permanent status. We do realize what Ed Code says, but other schools in the valley put their CTE people, ROP people back on permanent status. So they are asking, I am asking if you would consider it, please. And so I will give you this petition, and if you have any other questions for me? Okay, then thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CSCA. Thank you. J4, ROP Committee.
No report.
Thank you. Safety Committee.
Good evening. Just a quick report on our District Safety Committee. We did have a meeting on September the 19th, and we actually had very good representation. We had representatives from all sides. We had our board member, Mr. Lorenzo Calderon, was present. We also had our fire chief and our chief of police were present at our meeting. There was only a few that were of our representatives that were missing. good representation. And we did have our SRO do the presentation on ALICE, which is a program that is used for organizations to respond to intruders, not necessarily active shooter, but any intruder. And so again, ALICE represents, the acronym is for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. We even had a little activity where we practiced on how to react to some of these type of incidents. And the committee members were very interested in looking into adopting this program district-wide. We understand, and I believe that El Centro and maybe Brawley has adopted it. So the next steps that we're looking into is our SRO is going to go to the districts that he believes has adopted it and see how they rolled out this plan, so that we can also begin our trainings with our staff, our students, and even our parents, because parents are also part of this training. On October 18, we're going to participate in the Great California Shakeout for all sites participating, including our district office building, M&O, FRC, and so forth. So that'll take place on October 18 at 10:18. Okay, and then there was a lot of things that we discussed, but the other topic that we had towards the end is the school site cameras. So I did share with the team the process we're looking into acquiring cameras. And last year we began the work with some incident maps where they had to plot down where incidents were taking place at their sites. So I gave them homework because we didn't have time to do it during our session. So the homework was to take the maps back to their sites, and they have to mark calendars with green, indicating where they have cameras that are functioning and that are in our system. Because we know that there's a lot of sites that have cameras, but they're not attached to our system or cannot be monitored through our system. And then they're going to put a red dot on areas that they feel, based on their data that they have collected, where they feel a camera should be placed. So I did tell the principals to have that ready for me. I told them that the safety committee members were going to have this homework, but in order to support them with the homework, to have it ready for our next principal meeting, which is on, I believe it's October 11 or so. So our next safety committee meeting will take place on November the 26th. That's it.
Thank you. J5, board reports. Mr. Romero.
Welcome, everyone. I attended the open house for India Camarena and high school. It's very well attended, a lot of parents, some good presentations. I walked into Mr. James Taylor's presentation. He teaches AP art history. It's very amazing. I want to sit in and take his class. But it was good attendance. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Just two things. I went to Bland Charles and Rockwood, and I noticed that their playgrounds are missing the for kinder are missing the rubber mats, the rubber flooring. So I was wondering if we could do something about that. I know other schools, Cesar Chavez and Dual and Mains, they have the rubber flooring, but not these schools. So I was wondering if we can do something about that. Also at Mains, at Rockwood, I sent you the pictures of the water dispensers. So hopefully we can do something about that too. Other than that, so far so good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon Jr.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As always, thank you for joining us. I would like to, right now, to publicly thank Ms. Carolina Rodriguez because of last board meeting, making us aware of some of the fiscal responsibilities that this district, or we have to this district. So again, I'd like to commend you and Ms. Carolina or Ms. Rodriguez for recommending several steps this board needs to address to ensure the fiscal sovereignty today and in the future. Let us not forget these recommendations, as this future of this district may be impacted by the decisions that we make today. Again, thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, and I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Again, thank you for letting us know and actually setting the roadmap for us. And Mr. Vega, welcome. And we have a lot of work to do because we got some buildings to go up and so forth. And little do you know, we got technology also coming, and that's another big item we have on the table. So again, thank you both, and let's work together and get this done. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Castillo?
Very good. Well, I think on behalf of both of you, it's been said. So again, thank you and goodbye. Welcome and good luck. No, I know you guys are working together, cross-training, cross-referencing, so that'll be good. And hopefully, soon we'll have some more staff to support. Likewise, had a chance to visit back-to-school events, Liga Camarena. Good turnout. I was pleased to see that. Parents involved and engaged. As well as the high school. I think staff did a good job, teachers did a good job. Ran very smooth, and just walking around different classrooms was nice and a pleasure. So thank you for that. I did have a chance to go to the Measure V meeting as well, I think last week. Pleased with the meeting. Participants all engaged, discussing. I mean, it was a pretty quick meeting. But again, everybody was engaged, asking good questions. I think Mr. Horton ran it efficiently, and I think they certainly are. We take their input and feedback. We do consider that as we're looking at our agenda items. So I did share that their input is valued here. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you all for showing up. ACT, thank you for filling up packing the room. Carolina, I think Mr. Calderon, Mr. Castillo already said this, but they're gonna get a very well-rounded individual up north. If it doesn't work out, hopefully we can find something back here, for you also as well. Other than that, let's go ahead and get this started now. Thank you. Okay, discussion, possible action, K1, maintenance and operation, replacement of fleet vehicles.
There was some information that was requested from the board the last time we brought this item, and so Carolina will share that information with the trustees.
Okay, good evening, board members. So we wanted true numbers because I did give you some figures as far as the fuel cost, and at that time I didn't know the division of how that was itemized, whether it was just transportation or maintenance. And so I went back and ran the numbers. So we did spend $154,000 in fuel, and this is just the fuel. It was about $57,000 on service trucks, and then the rest was pupil transportation. And so that was a better number because at that time I had said some numbers, but it wasn't clear. But today I tell you that's the true cost, $57,000 for last year. And then as far as repairs, the only source of information that I was able to pull out is we have something called School Dude, and that's how we track our work orders in the maintenance and operations and transportation department. And so based on the data entered to the system, there is a total of $21,297 in repairs for service trucks. There's also repairs for the buses, and that was about $100,000 for buses. But overall, for the vehicles, it's about $22,000 on repairs and $57,000 on fuel. So between those two, you're talking about what, $79,000. And I think that this information was something you wanted to hear because we're still contemplating whether we go out to lease or whether we go out and buy service trucks. I know Mr. Vega and I have been meeting about this issue, and he has some recommendations to make. And so tonight is just discussion, giving you the extra information. But I think we still need to do some more research to give you a solid recommendation. Yes.
And you're right, we still need to do a little more homework. I went out to M&O today to see the vehicles, and yes, we do need vehicles.
No, that's a fact.
I mean, I got to see them firsthand. We do need, most of them averaging 93, almost 20 years old, and I understand. But I also learned today, based on the need, that Ford also has programs. They call them municipal programs, similar to the lease programs. But in this one, after you make all the payments it could be from 2 to 5 years, you only pay $1 and it closes the deal, and the vehicle becomes yours.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I shared it with you. I sent it to
Yeah,
you
you sent me
earlier.
email.
And I didn't get a
Mhm.
response, but it's something that we should look at. I know that Jeremy was telling me that we already purchased 2 trucks and a van for student transport.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, if we're not going to go through the lease process, we should at least buy 3 or 4 more vehicles to kind of get rid of some of these cars that are in really bad shape.
Yeah, and like I said, talking to Mr. Vega, well, he's just here this week, but he comes with a great deal of expertise in this area of maintenance and operations, and he has some recommendations. And I mean, one of the things he did mention is that he would prefer to buy instead of lease.
Yes.
And so, because we were looking at 5 years at 130,000, that's $650,000. And so that if we were to go through a program like what you just
Yeah.
sent,
Appa-
maybe we could do some better savings and.
Yes,
Mhm.
apparently, a lot of police departments go through these process.
Mhm.
They purchase their vehicles, and at the end of the lease, they become theirs with a dollar.
Yeah.
So it's something that, I'm not saying this is the program, just something to look into,
Mhm.
and it could be maybe, on consideration, but.
Yeah.
And you have the information, and hopefully you can follow through with it, or Mr. Vega can follow through and
Yeah, no, we
get
will work on
some new vehicles for our staff,
Yeah.
because they are bad, and we need to start changing them, in other words.
Yeah, as I said before, we should buy at least 5 a year. I concur with Mr. Vega. I'm not a fan of leasing. I don't know why we waited so long. And this second year I've been here, and this is the first year
Mhm.
that we have an urgency. We should have been doing this a long time ago.
Exactly.
With the enterprise, I asked the gentleman what the implied interest was, and he says 3% above, 3% plus above the treasury note. That's around 6%. How much money are we earning on our cash in the bank? 1%, 1.5%? Why are we gonna be paying 6% interest? It doesn't make sense. But I do want to go out and buy at least 5 vehicles per year and get them up to date. Because I don't want to carry any loans 2 or 3 years from now. We don't know what the economic picture might look like.
Mr. Romero, about a year ago, I did go to M&O, and I brought back that information about our vehicles, our work trucks. And we went ahead and bought several vehicles for almost students' transport. However, my issue here is work trucks. Those work trucks that our personnel are using right now, they need to be replaced. They need to be replaced. So I understand that this is taxpayers' money. I understand that completely. Yes, I do. However, have you seen those work trucks? Have you seen the condition of those work trucks? We need to replace those ASAP. ASAP. So I'm not saying to go lease. No, I'm not a fan of that. But we need to take a look at what is it that is needed at M&O. Okay, all personnel deserve to be driving, something where they can do their work, or they can go to sites and do their work, trucks with boxes and things like that. Okay, something that they can use to properly do their work.
Yeah. No, and I agree. So for tonight, this this is just the information that you requested, and be assured that Mr. Vega and I will be working while I'm here on this, and then while I'm gone, then he'll continue, or we'll possibly have a solution. But Mr. Vega, here, do you want to add anything? Or the board has more questions, but for me, this is it.
Yeah, I'll let her comment too, since we're speaking. So again, we did request some information at the last meeting, and I think we received some of that information. And I had a chance also to go visit the warehouse as well, as I think we said some of us would do. And like you heard from board members, the conditions of the vehicles are appalling. Holes in the floor, holes in the seats, things don't work, no air conditioning, brakes. I think even when I was there, a truck broke down and had to be hauled in. So that adds more time, more cost, more repairs. So we know that. So there's the gas cost, the maintenance cost, and pulling staff away from other duties as well. and then just a limited number of trucks and vehicles. These are the working conditions, they're working in offices, I think, for the staff that they're working in. It was 109 degrees today, and they're driving around, or outside in excessive heat. Things we wouldn't want to put our employees in. So it's a health and safety issue for the entire staff. And I think that's what's important that we need to address, their own health, the safety of the vehicles, not just for our employees, but for those in our community, because they're driving these vehicles around. I think fortunately we haven't had any accidents caused by our employees, but certainly the brakes I know are awful, taking longer to brake. But it's a health and safety issue, and I know we wouldn't want to put our employees, and I don't think we expect to put our employees in those situations. So the sooner the better, the sooner we can take care of this for the employees and our staff, the better. So I look forward to seeing some solutions, if that's the direction of the board, hopefully at the next meeting.
If I can just ask a question, may I? How many vehicles would you like me to look into purchasing?
We
How
had
many,
some of that,
the question is, how many need to be replaced right now, Jeremy? I mean, like, just
All
like,
of them, but we
23.
can't-
no, like, I'm saying like right now, like that,
21.
Okay,
But
21.
what about work
Well,
trucks?
we can't do 21 right now at
Work-
this time, but.
We already have 2 coming, and they're without any toolboxes or anything. We still got to invest in them, and they were $27,000.
Okay. I just would like you to know that anytime you purchase that many vehicles, a couple of things. You have to go out for bid, or
Yes.
you have to piggyback on somebody else's bid.
Yes.
Normally, you can find those with municipalities like the city. I've already contacted a couple of dealers in San Diego that handle large fleet commercial vehicles. So that's one thing. So even though we may agree on how to, purchase them, I just want you to know that it's not going to happen overnight. From time we order, sometimes it has to go to the factory, and it could be months before we get them. So
Well, I understand that. I think we understand that. I think what we want is action.
A plan.
A
You got
plan in action.
You got it.
Okay, I know that the last time that we bought vehicles, it took months before we got them. But we want we want to be able to say to people, yes, we already ordered them, they are coming.
absolutely.
Because
I
this is
will
a,
get you that data by the next board meeting.
so, but Mr.
Thank you.
Alvarado,
Thank you, Mr. Vega. That's what I was gonna ask you, if you could have it for us within the next couple board meetings, not the next one or the following, but needs to be done within the next.
I will expedite the purchase. I will start getting in contact with the dealers and get a quote, and hopefully I can submit that for your review and approval.
okay.
And also, please look at that information I sent you.
Yes, sir.
guys.
I sent an email tonight. Hopefully the person that is in charge of that can respond, and if so, I will bring that as a viable option as well.
So those options, yeah, just give us a list of options for
You
us
got
to
it.
consider.
I will present to you 2 or 3 options, so you let me know what you decide.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Thank you, Carolina.
And welcome again.
K2, use of district credit cards, direction.
So there was a request to put this one on the agenda regarding the district credit cards, and we put it as a direction. And so at the last, budget presentation, Ms. Rodriguez, I think, made it very clear in regards to the credit card usage, that it would be something that we really needed to take a look at and really look at restructure it. And so one of the things that we would like, direction from the board is, we've been discussing it as well, and Mr. Vega is also not a big fan of issuing a lot of credit cards out, and in fact, really making sure that there is control and that there is a structure. And so one of the things that we had discussed is looking at even having board policy regarding the credit card usage. And so one of the things that we'd like to bring back to the board is board policy regarding administrative regulation, guidelines as far as how credit cards are used in the district.
Don't we have a process now?
Don't we have a process now? I mean, 'cause I know that when I travel, in fact, when we went to Orange County, you handed me a credit card, and then as soon as the trip was done, I gave it back to you.
Right.
And so if it works for me, why can't it work for anyone else that travels?
Well, one of the things is that there's credit cards that are out there at the different sites.
Yeah,
and
I
so-
understand you have 34.
Correct.
34 out there, and I'm not a fan of credit cards myself. In fact, I went and I looked at some of the, I hope this is the U.S. bank account that on the pre-list of what we were paying. And what I see here is just a convenience. Convenience that they won't go through the process that we have established and just buy things. But if you take your own household into consideration, I hope that you're not giving out credit cards to your kids, or because it can get you into serious problems. So not knowing what's being purchased and so forth, it would be a mystery to me if I was taking care of money. So with that said, I think that everybody can check out or do the PO process. I don't think that it would hold up
Right.
our sort of our work operation here.
Right, and we agree, and that's one of the things that we're gonna look at, and we want to restructure and bring it back to the board for review.
But is there anything in place right now from it to stop occurring and stuff as far as that goes, as far as it just being used what it's supposed to be used for, which, from my understanding, is just for hotels and going out of
Correct.
county, correct?
Correct.
So there should be something sent out to everybody, all administrators, saying to halt for right now until something's in place. Because, I mean, we can't keep on doing this, what we're doing.
Absolutely, and that's something that we easily put a control on.
Well, let me ask Carolina, do you wanna, if we were to remove these credit cards like tomorrow, would it affect our operation?
If we were to do that, it wouldn't, because there's still a credit card under the district's name. The only change would be that the sites who want to use the card or charge the card, they would have to go through us to place that charge,
Well,
which
isn't
is
that
fine.
the right thing to do?
Which is fine, yes. And Mr. Vega also comes from districts where there's only 3 physical cards in
Yeah,
the
and
whole
superintendent
district.
should have
And
one.
it just happens that they'll have one for, like, it was our intent to use it for registration, for professional development, and that sort of things that can't be bought with PO.
When I worked, we had 6, and they, as soon as you got back from training, they would be haunting you to get that credit card, because that went to another staff that was going on training. So I understand the process. So,
Yes.
So I
again,
think,
I mean, I was done. I mean,
I think I'm hearing maybe the desire from our heritage, we just need the internal controls, place, procedures. I think we have Mr. Vega now joining us, so I think what I'd like to see, come back to us next time. Give us some of these procedures, AR or board policy, that we can look at, consider, and adopt.
Yeah, and when the credit card program was implemented, we did send out an acknowledgement that each card holder signed off on it, and we did give out a listing of all the allowable items that must be, that can be spent from the card, and things that they can't. Obviously, they list things that, personal items or, entertainment, that kind of thing. But yes, everybody was given a list or some sort of a procedure on how to
Guidelines.
use them. But we don't have an official, we would need to look through your board policy to see if there's something in place, but I don't think we have an administrative regulation that would be more specific.
I had to step out for a minute, and I'm sorry, but I'm back. I don't know if you covered this when I was gone. With those credit cards, I don't think, at least from my point of view, I'm not saying that there are somebody is misusing the credit cards.
No.
That's not the point.
No, that's
That
not
is
the
not.
point.
However, it's about internal control.
Yes.
In my work site, I asked one of the directors
Mm-hmm.
that we had a meeting with last Tuesday, and she told me there's only 5 credit cards in the district. One, and they are all of the credit cards are at the district office, and the superintendent has one. Other than that, they have to go, check it out, sign the paperwork, go and use it for whatever you're gonna use it, come back and bring your receipt, and that's it. And I think that's what we want.
Yeah.
Okay, they can still use it for whatever they need. However, how many credit cards do we have out? 34. Really? Really? No.
No.
So I don't think, I think, I don't know, what, do we want to do something about that, Mr. Calderon?
Let Mr. Vega come up with a plan,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back to us.
Probably next board.
For the next board meeting on the 11th.
I will make that a priority as well.
He's got a lot on his plate already, let's give him time.
Hey,
I'll get that done.
yeah, that's,
I'll get it done.
That too.
I've worked in a couple of districts where we have similar issues and we were able to resolve it. So Carolina's absolutely right. Credit cards should only be at the district level. should be a checking out process. But I would also like to add that in addition to that, we need to have better control on our per diem. Per diem means any money that when somebody goes out to a conference, we need to have itemized receipts. And the practice of handing the money ahead of time, it is flawed. It is not an acceptable way of keeping track of how much money is being spent. Remember, when you don't require receipts, people can buy alcohol. People can buy things that may or may not be suitable. So we have to be careful. That's why when it comes to from our accounting purposes, we need to make sure that every receipt that we receive from anybody that goes out to a conference, we need to see and make sure that funds are being used in a responsible way.
Yes, per diem. Don't we follow the federal guidelines? Normally, they go with $50 a day if you're gone to the high-priced area, 64, you're in San Francisco, whatever. So the feds don't require receipts. A lot of cities don't require receipts.
Right.
So why would we want to bother our people that are traveling to carry receipts?
If we get audited, they would ask us for those receipts.
I don't think so. I mean, I work for the city, and our people get per diem. We follow the federal rates.
Okay.
Like
And-
breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, hold on, I'm talking. Anyway, they breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's allowable. The auditors won't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I've never, in my 33 years in the South Central, we've never had a problem with the auditors dealing with that. So I would be opposed to coming back with receipts. How cumbersome is that? If the feds allow so much per day, let's recognize that.
Okay.
And that's my philosophy.
Sounds good. Well, we'll bring it,
With a plan, so.
we'll just bring it back. That way we can see what's going on.
Yeah, as far as the per diem, the only one issue, I mean, I know that it's allowable to do without receipts. The only one thing that we would work with is when we bring back the recommendation, is doing the per diems after the fact.
Okay,
Because-
I do not
Yes.
concur with that either. I mean,
No?
you want your
Okay.
employees, you want your employees to travel on their own monies? Come
Well,
on.
no, maybe there can be some variations. Let's say if.
No
if-
variations, no.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, then we'll bring back a recommendation.
Bring them back.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
L, action items. Consideration action approval of the following items. L1, agreement amendment between Calexico Unified School District and the City of Calexico for school resource officers for 2018-19 and
everybody does.
2019-20 school year.
Everybody does.
So we're bringing the agreement, this is for 2 SROs to increase the amount of SROs that we have. We currently have 1, but there is definitely a need to have a second one. And so we're bringing this as a recommendation to the board to approve, and the funding is coming out of the general budget for this one.
I just have a comment about that. I talked to a couple of people regarding this, and their only concern is regarding the SROs being pulled to do city stuff every once in a while. So I said, well, if there's an emergency, well, of course, everybody that if it's I shouldn't say a real emergency because every emergency is an emergency, but something that needs to be done immediately, urgency. And I said, well, they need to respond, but those people that I was talking to, they said, well, but then what about if we have an emergency and that person is involved at this other emergency? So what is our take on this? Because if we're
Yeah.
gonna pay for these people, for these officers, we need to make sure that they doing the job for us. for
So
our
their,
kids.
their priority is at the sites. In fact, we had a meeting, Ms. Williams and myself today with Chief Gerardo. And one of the things that we talked about, or a few things that we talked about, was location and placement and where the SROs are at. And I think we walked away from the meeting with a clear indication of what the expectations are. So I think As far as where they need to be at, it's the sites, of course, as a priority. As far as, what emergencies would constitute for an SRO to leave to go respond to a different call if an officer is down or some type of other emergency, then maybe that would be the only exceptions. But as far as their priority is at the school sites. Vice versa, if there is an emergency at the school site, then obviously there would be responders from the Calexico Police Department to help and assist as well.
I think what Mr. Calderon was saying is that law enforcement, there is no doubt or anything that they know the chain of command. And the thing is, some of us here are law enforcement, and when we were loaned out to an agency, that's where our work site was at. And we had to report. For example, if we have two, one is at the high school, he or she would report to Ms. Williams, and the other one, if he was in, say, at Willie Moreno, report to Mr. Velez. They need to know at all times where these officers are at. Of course, there's going to be unforeseen situations where they need to respond to the city. I mean, it could be my house that and they need assistance over, so I would want them there too. But they always have to have constant communication with our site principals.
Correct.
Because, I mean, that's who their bosses are from whatever hours they're working. It's from 8 to 4 or 7 to 3. These staff need to know where they're at.
Right, and I believe that we established that with our meeting with Chief
All right.
Gerardo.
And then I guess it could be established in a MOU or something.
Correct.
And let them know that we're their bosses when we're paying that tab.
Correct.
And like you said, yes, they can be pulled for city emergencies. They're still city employees, correct?
Yes.
That's
We're just
correct.
subcontracting. And then that'll happen. That's going to happen. And we just need, the site principals, I think, just need to monitor as yourself or district office, how much time they're actually getting pulled out so we can have those conversations with the PD later.
Correct.
Okay.
We agree.
Thank you.
So there's a motion by Mr. Romero, second by Calderon. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L2, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Calexico Neighborhood House for the use of property.
So at the last board meeting, we talked about the neighborhood house and the usage of some district property, specifically for the First Five program, I believe that they're implementing. And so we did go out and create an agreement. And so part of what we're bringing now is that agreement to the board. It's a one-year agreement lease, and it's for the purpose of the usage of space, specifically at where the new FRC Center will be located.
I'll second. Motion by Mr. Romero, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L3, agreement between Calexico Unified School District and Cal State Teach for 2018 through 2021 for student teacher placement.
Motion to.
I'll second.
Motion by Calderon Jr., second by Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon Jr., Castillo, and myself. Moving on to L4, agreement renewal between Calexico Unified School District and Arctic Air Conditioning and Heating Incorporated for HVAC emergency preventive maintenance and repair services.
So this is an agreement, it's a renewal. We brought it to the board a year ago. It was for a one-year agreement. And so now we're bringing it to the board for a renewal.
Carolina, there was some numbers that I wanted to find out as far as that goes, because last year was the same thing, but I was under the impression that I think it went over that amount, correct? Correct. Do you have those numbers right now or no?
I don't have them with me. I just have this year's, current year.
All right. Do you know what that is so far for this year?
97,000.
97,000 for this year so far?
And encumbered 177.
177? And the agreement with them was for 107,000, correct?
Per year, correct.
Per year. So you went $70,000 over?
7.
From the 177 that have been encumbered, and meaning that an open PO has been generated, 75,000 is for preventive maintenance, and 15 is for repairs. And then the rest is for new units. So as far as preventive maintenance and repairs, where are we approving the agreement? We're at 90,000. So we're not over that piece.
All right.
But the company itself, that's how much we've opened POs for that company. But that's linked to another item on the agenda. Mhm.
Well, how many ACs was replacing for that amount?
For the remaining,
Correct.
we have replaced 8 units for a total, paid out cost of 68,000. So about 8,000 each.
And just like Ms. Rodriguez mentioned, there's kind of two different things.
Yeah,
One
it's two
is
different
for
items.
the emergency preventative maintenance and repair service.
Correct.
So we don't want to kind of mix one with the other because then it's going to throw it off. However, in regards to the agreement, they're still within that amount at this
Yes,
point.
90,000.
All right. Well,
apologize.
I got something.
Go ahead.
I was elected in 2014, and it's been since that I have brought this issue. Preventive maintenance plans. We don't have one yet. It's been 4 years. We hired this company here to augment our team of HVACs in the summers when they didn't have enough time to get our classrooms ready for our students and so forth. This has become now a regular practice, that we have this company actually servicing our units when that wasn't the case. They were there for just emergencies. So with that said, Mr. Vega, you have a lot on your plate right now, but guess what? Where I come from, we had a maintenance program plan. And every day, it would actually give our staff a sheet of paper and would tell them, you have to service these 6 air conditioners. And then the next day would be another 6, and another 6, and another 6. Why? Because when the summer comes, the hot days, those air conditioners are ready. And that's why a plan is very crucial to have. I know we have 4 HVACs. I know one's out right now, but we just approved someone out of class to go and help them out. So with that said, I'm not in agreement with this this contract that you guys are asking for.
I'm also going to concur. I'm also going to concur with that, Mr. Calderon Jr. I'm not in agreement with this contract at all.
Why don't we have our own people? Why can't we award our own people, HVAC people, overtime to get this done?
So we do. We do offer that overtime. And so one of the things that I do want to mention, and I know that Mr. Vega will work on a very structured, maintenance plan to have in place, but I do want to say that, this year has been the first year in regards to air conditioners and issues that we've had the least, where really when school started, we had units running great, and we didn't have a lot of issues with AC, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of the preventative maintenance and the maintenance that has been going into these ACs. And so we are very limited when it comes to our employees or HVACs that we do have, and we have 762, I believe, air conditioners, and 750. So
I did my homework here, and I would say we still have some that are dated back to 2002, but the majority of them have been replaced in 2015. I would say most of them. And from there on, we have replaced most of them. And then don't we have also a plan right now with the IRD that they're actually gonna fund some replacement?
they'll be able to replace 50 air conditioner units, about 3 per site.
With that said, most of these units are fairly new. So with that capacity, I think our staff can handle that, because they know if they're keeping track of what they're doing, I think they can actually service these air conditioners.
I think my concern would be if we get to the point that we start having issues with air conditioning units because they're not being serviced. That would be my concern.
And if that's the case, you come back to us and say, we gotta hire this company to help our staff, and I have no problem with that.
And I'm gonna take it a little bit further than that. I mean, this is 170 grand that we're spending. Why can't we hire more people, technicians, just for us, part of our Calexico family? Why do we have to go and contract out? I mean, I'm not against contracting out, but if we're spending that money, well, I'd rather see it go to somebody that knows the job and that wants to work for us and has the skills and be part of us. Why do we have to contract out?
Yeah, so I think what we can look at is look at a plan. We can bring it back to the board in regards to, what is the best plan, but I just, again, am concerned with not being able to service, our air conditioner units. I think this was a one-year agreement. I think we're seeing it pay off with the amount of AC units issues that we had this year, which were minimal, as opposed to previous years where we had ACs going down left and right. I just would hate for us to be in that position and situation again, because the only ones that suffer here are going to be our staff and our students. That's the bottom
Well,
line.
why don't we open it up to other companies also as well? Why does it have to just be, it was?
Bodies. 4 out of the 4, how many are able to work? 3 guys working 750 units. I'm supportive of this. I support this. In case of, as Carlos and Mr. Gonzalez is saying, in case of emergency, we got to be prepared. So I make a motion that we approve this contract.
So there's a motion by Mr. Romero. Second by Mr. Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
No.
All those against?
No.
No. So,
Let me, Mr. Romero, with all due respect, I'm all for it. I'm not against this, but when you say open it up, I'm going to tell you, they opened it up to 7 companies. Out of those 7 companies, only 1 was from Calexico. We have at least 5 companies here in Calexico that actually work out of Calexico. So if we're going to do it right, then we got to open it up to people here
If
from
they
Calexico.
chose not to participate,
Well,
that is their problem.
Read what they have here. They actually invited, they send paperwork to companies, 7 companies, and none from Calexico other than 1. It was AJ Air Tech. I have no problem with it. They can send all the invitations to all they want, but they should consider Calexico.
It was also advertised in the local newspaper.
so.
They
real-
sent, well, if you read it there, I don't know if
Hold
it's.
on real quick. There was a motion failed to pass, so
well.
we're gonna go ahead and move on. L5, agreement between Calexico High School and the Regents of the University of California for establishment of an eco garden.
We have a guest. Is there anything you want to share?
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll retract my motion for right now.
Sounds good.
Alright. Corn and stuff.
Hello, board. Thank you for having me. I'm Chris Wan. I'm the Community Education Specialist for the University of California over at Meadowland Ranch. The cooperative extension is, you guys, mostly we have farm advisors, so we have agronomists and PhD guys working on irrigation and pest management. Any sort of new information that comes from the university gets extended onto the community through us. My office is the UC CalFresh office. So UC CalFresh is California's SNAP EBT implementing agency. So what used to be food stamps is now SNAP EBT benefits. We get to serve any population whose school is more than 50% low income. And so before we play the video, maybe I can talk more about why we're doing what we're doing. There is a rising rate of childhood obesity in the county. We have the second highest in the state, very close to the highest. Rising rate of prediabetes and heart disease as well. UCLA came and did a study in 2016. It came out in the Ivy Press. So the reason why we get funded is because the government figures, or the USDA figures, it's a better investment to invest in education, health education for kids rather than to spend, for every dollar that the USDA spends on health education for children, it saves about $8 or $9 in healthcare subsidies later on in life. Our goal is to eradicate, lower the rate as much as possible, and we do that by providing teachers with nutrition curriculum. So we go from daycares to K through 12 schools, low-income housing sites, senior housing sites, and we give extenders curriculum that they can take to the community. It's all evidence-based, research and peer-reviewed. We enhance the nutrition curriculum with gardening. So we teach kids about why tomatoes are good, and we also teach them how to grow them. We also introduce physical activity curriculum to the schools. I started in November, so I'm fairly new to this, but I've been at Calexico High School working with the Eco Garden Club and Chef Nunez for the past 5 years. In those 5 years, we've grown a variety of different crops. I think the first year we harvested cauliflower, and Principal Esqueda was there to help us do a garden-to-table demonstration. And Principal Williams has also, I think, witnessed the past couple of years of activity at the site. We're right outside. If you've seen the garden, it's right outside Chef Nunez's classroom. We'll have things seasonally there. Over the summer, it usually dies and gets all ugly. The beds are really old. They're falling apart. But we would like to come in and continue working with y'all to enhance it and to hopefully fill up the entire space in that area. Along with that, we'd also like to set up gardens at every single school in the district, but that could probably be in a different MOU on another occasion. Specifically, this agreement is to allow us to do a Teens as Teachers program where we're going to have dual elementary school students coming into the high school to get, the culinary arts class is going to basically train them to cook for themselves, and also they'll be practicing their food demonstrations. Along with Teens as Teachers, there's another program. Teens as Teachers is in partnership with 4-H, which is a national club that just restarted in Calexico. Trying to get into 4-H. We're trying to get 4-H into every single school in Calexico through a group enrollment. If you have a club that's separate from the school, the kids have to pay about $60 now. But if it's group enrollment through the schools, it's free, and they can provide a bunch of free resources for the schools. So Teens as Teachers is one thing, but also we have Youth Participatory Action Research. So the youth from the Eco Garden Club are also following a framework in which they come together as a group, they identify shared issues, and then they research it by focus groups, interviews, surveys, and then they present the findings in order to address those issues that they identify. Last year they focused on the student nutrition at Calexico High School, so they went around the food trucks and were interviewing students about what they eat, what they like to eat, whether or not they eat in the cafeteria. And so we'd like to continue doing that work at the school. There's also, the Eco Garden Club, we'd like to expand it. If we can provide soil, we can provide transplants, we can provide seed. We just need permission to go in and work. Possibly if you guys can fund the construction of beds, that would be helpful. We're also, this last year we lost water access at the high school, so we've been having to pump water from inside of Chef Nunez's classroom. He has a little sink. We run a chicanada, we bring the hose through the window, and then we water. So that's my spiel. And there's a little video that will show you guys what we're doing. We don't want to take too much time from you guys. It's about 3 minutes long, but the girls probably like it. It's a nutrition education curriculum for a preschool. Catch B is a coordinated approach to child health. And so we'll go into daycares. We're providing food tastings to seniors here. I think there's sound with the video, but I can just talk over it. We've set up gardens at the senior housing sites. This is Calexico High School. They were working on it last year. And those are some beets that they harvested at the high school. Down in the left corner is Jefferson Elementary School students, and then the before and after is a site in Brawley. Catch P is something that we want to introduce. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about that stuff, and I wish that the teachers would have stayed because we want to introduce this to the rest of the schools as well. I can talk more about Catch in a later date. I'd like to set up regular presentations with y'all just to give you just to introduce ourselves to the district, we can go anywhere in the county. We choose to come to Calexico mostly because I'm from here, and I want to give back as much as possible. So we can also set up stencil projects at your schools. If PTOs or if anybody else wants to get together and paint their playgrounds, we can come and provide the paint and help you guys do it. That's a research club that was at Meadows Elementary School. It was a predecessor to that work. It started last year, and then the year after we started the Youth Participatory Action Research Club in Calexico High School. They did a food waste study at their school. They found that the school was wasting about 53 pounds of corn every time they served corn. And so they made some changes with the food services director. We're on the school wellness policy, school wellness committee, trying to work with the policy as well. But I think our office has not had a presence in this district ever. We've been at that office for the last 30 years. It's just that there was only 2 educators, and they were mostly in El Centro, mostly in other schools, and nobody would come down to Calexico. So that's why I'm here. We can work with the Smarter Lunchrooms movement and tweak the cafeteria marketing strategies to get kids to consume more fruits and vegetables and decrease the unhealthy options. And we can also work with the city to coordinate events and stuff like that. But thank you for your time, and hopefully we can continue to work with the district as much as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Go ahead, motion.
So I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Motion by Calderon, seconded by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor? Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L6, agreement between Calexico High School and the Imperial County Office of Education for one-day site training for the science department.
Motion.
Who made the motion?
Romero,
Calderon,
second by
Jr.,
me.
seconded by Romero. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L7, notice of completion for Calexico High School sports field lighting and site improvements.
Motion.
Motion by Calderon, Jr., seconded by Romero. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, myself. Moving on to L8, appointment of the Calexico High School Career and Technical Education Advisory Board for the 2018-2019 school year.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion by Calderon, second by myself. All those in favor, please state aye. Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, and myself. Moving on to L9, variable term waiver, 2018-2019 school year for Humberto Felix, Jr.
So. Second.
Motion by Romero, seconded by Calderon, Jr. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, and I abstain. Moving on to L10, approval of new course mobility and stretching at Calexico High School.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Calderon, second by Castillo. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor is Romero, Calderon, Jr., Castillo, and myself. L11, resolution establishing emergency repairs.
So this was brought to the board last year, and there was a resolution specifically for the purpose of whenever there's emergency repairs, either in the area of air conditioning, heating, sewer, plumbing problems, electrical problems, that they would be repaired. And part of it was because of where we live, and obviously the issues with the heat, that for us, any issue with an AC going down is a dangerous situation, right? It does provide, a concern with health, and so it's something that needs to be fixed immediately. And if there's air conditioners or whatever that need to be replaced, they need to be replaced. And so bringing back this one to the board as another resolution for another year to be able to attend to any issues and repairs involving emergencies.
So I have one question. Is there a limit on the expenditures?
No, because when it comes to emergencies,
Just
it's an emergency, is an emergency, exactly.
Would this hinder us from going out to bid and stuff like that if we were to approve this? Like opening it up for bids? It just,
Emergency.
We can do
Yeah.
both, yeah.
But I think this is more like on the weekends, if a pipe breaks at the high school and it's 9 o'clock.
That would be
Well, you
plumbing.
have to do whatever, or Chris has to do whatever he has to do in order to get a repair, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's an emergency, right?
Right, and it can happen during the week too. If
Yeah.
we have incidents of ACs going down, in classrooms, and those are emergencies as
so
well.
there's a motion by, any other questions? Motion by Romero,
I'll second.
second by Calderon Junior. It's a resolution, Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Calderon Junior.
Yes.
Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Moving on to L12, resolution to sign orders for 2018-2019 school
So
year.
move.
Second.
Motion by Calderon Junior, seconded by Mr. Castillo. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Mr. Calderon Junior.
Yes.
Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Moving on to L13, resolution regarding disposition of surplus asset, non-asset technology equipment at Calexico High School, ninth grade campus.
So move. Is Ms. Williams gone?
I'll second.
I was just gonna thank her because it's a mess and she took care of it, so.
So,
Thank
motion by Calderon Junior, seconded by myself. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Yes.
Calderon Junior, Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Moving on to L14, resolution authorizing assignment outside of major for 2018-2019 school year.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Calderon Junior, second by Mr. Castillo. Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Mr. Calderon.
Yes.
Calderon Junior,
Yes.
Mr. Castillo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Let's go ahead and reconvene to earlier closed session. It is 8:02 PM.